Carrier Command's dropping a bomb on Amigos. Everything Amiga. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
Today, Aaron, we're talking about Carrier Command.
Hell yeah. Yes, we are,
Aaron,
Bode.
do you consider yourself, when you're back at the lab, you ever just sort of look about your domain and think about how you're in command of the scene over there?
You know, I for those that don't know, I'm sure most do, I work in a crime lab, all right? I love saying that, all right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I look around the lab. We got stuff matriculating and spinning and turning. You know, we got bottles of crud sitting around, you know, what's in them, you know. We got weird machines and instruments and oscopes, stuff making noise, you know. There's a crime garage, there's crap going on in there. And there's all sorts of nefariety going on in the proper crime lab where they're in there running. They've got things spinning stuff and blood samples. There's a fridge full of blood, like in there, you know, in the lab. And every once in a while, I look around. I'm like, look at this. I'm amongst this. Like, how did I get in here? You know. So I don't usually feel like I'm in command of the lab. I feel like I'm like, you know, snuck in for like 10 years, like no one was looking. Here comes Dummy. Now, I don't touch any of the actual lab stuff, but I do look at it and then pretend that I can touch it.
Would you say that the filming of Vladkilla was the time when you felt like you had the most command over any sort of situation?
Yes, absolutely. The filming, I partially filmed a movie with my buddies 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
Well, it was 2000. Yeah, it had been about 22 years ago. In my backyard at 4 a.m. after we got off work, and I got these people to do things you can't imagine. No one would have done these, but they were, by God, they were dedicated to the cause. And so yes, I would say in terms of my control over people, I was at the peak of my cult leader-like abilities back in those days.
How about on the BBS days? Did you ever feel in command of your domain there?
Well, no, because you have to sort of run the BBS to be in command. So I was more like, but I felt like I was a strong leader, you know, on the BBS days. But I mean, is that a good thing? What does that mean, too? You know,
Starman was in command.
No, Starman was not. He was like a little wiener boy. The Chud was a wiener boy. But there were wiener boys, and then there were the leader types. So I counted myself amongst the leader types. Now, what about you? You're a teacher.
Yeah.
And you're in command like all the time. Do you ever have the students just do crap just to amuse your own power trip?
Oh, all the time. Most of my day is consumed with that sort of activity.
Example.
Well, you know, last night we were we had our football game, right? And the band's playing at the football game. And you know, we're getting ready. All of a sudden the pizza van rolls in. 23 large pizzas get delivered from Giovanni's.
I saw that.
Right. And so the kids, they know it's coming and they're starving. Because you know how it is when you're in middle school. You're just starving all the time.
I know how that is right this second.
and normally, you know, I don't have that much control over the kids. I say, okay, let's get it together. We're going to start this piece up, and it was, you know. Well, in this particular case, with 23 pizzas standing beside me, I went up to the table and I raised my arm, and dead silence fell over the crowd. And at that moment, I knew that I had command.
You know what struck me, as you posted a picture of the stack of pizza boxes. What struck me is that was like more expensive pizza.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation at Boat Fest about the pizza. Now, who sprung for this pizza?
The band pays for it because the band does several money-raising activities throughout the year.
And so how was the pizza, the Giovanni's pizza?
The Giovanni's is great. We use Giovanni's because they give us a break because I had her kid in band. So we get a little bit of a discount thanks to that. But we're still paying more than Little Caesars. Don't get me wrong.
Now, do you ever do things with the class? Like, for example, one of the things I've learned as being a father is like one of the best parts is like making my kid do and say stupid crap to promote amusement.
Example.
I'll be like, I'll tell Luke that I am the leader and king of all podcasters and media, and then he says, "No, you're not. That's dumb." And then I make him agree with me, or I won't give him dinner, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if teachers have that kind of power over their students, because kids these days in school know the score. They know where you stand. But I do enjoy. I still get a thrill out of it. When you're at ratings, or when you're at an important performance, a concert or something. And you raise your hands up, and then you boom like that, and all of a sudden music fills the air. It's
that's what bugs me. Remember we talked about how they have those conductorless bands?
Yeah, that's
no good. That's because listen, one thing about having a band with a conductor, the band's the band, no one cares. But you're getting the conductor, that feeling, the King Dong feeling.
It is the King Dong
that you're running
feeling.
The show. The thought that they would run the show without a dong, no good.
You don't want to be dongless.
No, you do not.
And with that, Aaron, let's talk about carrier command.
Oh, man. That was some rock and roll right there, brother. The Carrier Command band was taking care of business right there, Bode. Beautiful. Beautiful tunes. I want to preface this look at Carrier Command just briefly by talking about the fact that I know for a fact we've both played this game, Bode.
Yeah.
Because we had a go of this on our Sinclair a couple years ago on the ZX Spectrum, which is a version that came out a little later, I think, than the other version. In fact, it did. It came out in '89. And so we came into this with at least, and thankfully, we came into this with at least a modicum of knowledge of this game. Because I remember when we played this originally, I was completely overwhelmed and clueless. And so I felt a little less clueless this time around, thank God. So we are looking at Carrier Command. Again, this was released on the Amiga and the Atari ST in '88. Then the DOS, C64, Spectrum, and the Amstrad got a version of this in '89. The Mac got a version in '90, and Windows got a version of this in 2022. And there's a Steam version of this you can also play. I saw a fellow playing this on a Steam from Steam. So this game is carried on. But when you get that much action, it's a sort of a beloved game, don't you?
Sure, absolutely.
This one was developed by an outfit called Real Time Games, which this is all they did on the Amiga. But their name's out there. This was published by Rainbird. We've touched on a few Rainbird games over the years. Some of these I'd heard of. They did Midwinter, Myth. They did Starglider 1 and 2, Boat, Tower of Babel, and Weird Dreams. Personal favorite of mine. The original design for this is credited to Ricardo Pinto, but it says conceived by Claire Edgley. So you had an original design and a conceived by on this one. On the Amiga, yeah. So it's double trouble.
Well, I think usually when you see something like that, Claire was probably somebody that was sitting at the pub next to the designer and said, "Hey, it would be cool if you had an aircraft carrier game." And then it came to pass, and the guy was like, "All right, well, you helped me come up with the idea, so we'll give you this credit."
We're gonna find out that Claire Edgley is like the premier, and now I'm looking her up to see if she if I assume it is a girl. And this, according to Giant Bomb, this was her only credit. It says here she was a British video game journalist and the editor for computer and video games and Sinclair user magazines.
Yeah.
There you go. And she's best known for conceiving this game. So there you go. I'm glad I looked that up. This was coded by Graham Anderson and Ian Moran. Graham Anderson worked on Hired Guns. That's a pretty acclaimed game, Bo. And you can sort of see, you've got multiple things going on in Hired Guns. And so I can see where the carrier
It's polygonal, right? Hired Guns.
Ian Moran worked on a whole slew of things. We looked at a couple of these. Hudson Hawk, Midnight Resistance, RoboCop 2, Striker, Untouchables, Death Trap, and Alien Legion. The graphics on this by Herman Serrano, who worked at a whole ton of stuff we've looked at, both Battle of the Ashes, Birds of Prey, Bubble and Squeak, or Squawk, whatever. Chaos, the Chaos engines. It's funny, this guy worked on some of the best games and some of the worst games, because he also worked on Days of Thunder, which is a profoundly bad game. This guy messed with, he was on Graham Gooch, Infestation, Starfighter 2, Weird Dreams, and Savage. So I had to get Savage in there.
Yeah, man.
The sound and disc routines on this from Andy Beveridge, and the sound effects on this. Now, get this. The music on this was done by David Lowe, who we've also crossed horns with a few times. He did IK Plus, Summer. He did a bunch of the summer games, the various summer games. He did Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But get this. The sound effects are credited to David Whitaker. So he just did the sound effects of this. That's according to the actual credits for the game. So
okay.
I thought that was interesting. Of course, David Whitaker has done it all. And the price of this upon release in '88 was £24, 95p, and this was an OCS joint. So, with all the particulars out of the way here, Boat. How to describe this game? I'm going to try to describe this, and then unless you just want to take over the helm here.
All right, I'll take over.
Go ahead, get in there, Boat.
So this game is a operation simulation of 3 discrete types of craft. Okay, so at the highest level, you are commanding an aircraft carrier, a flying plane called the Manta, and a amphibious vessel called the Walrus. So this is a game in which you control 3 different types of craft on a simulation level. I would say that the type of control that you have in this game firmly places it more in the simulation camp than the arcade camp.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the arcade camp is nowhere near this camp. Sorry, it took me a second to digest that last statement. So, in Carrier Command, the premise is actually, it's sort of interesting. Some folks built 2 large aircraft carriers. All right. By the way, I think we've went over this premise about 300 times on 600 other games, but we're going to go over it again. So they've got one carrier that's pretty good, but then they've got the King Dong of carriers, right? Well, guess what? Scumbag sees King Dong, and he's gone. All right. So they're like, crap. All we've got left is like your regulation carrier. Mm-hmm. And King Dong's like, I'm taking over all these islands, 64 islands, and I'm going to rule this joint. And you're like, and your people are like, oh no, you're not, because we're going to fight violently against you in our kind of regulation carrier, and we're going to try to get these islands, and we're hoping we're going to blow up your bad carrier with our good carrier, so when you start the game, you've got a couple choices on your gameplay mode. You've got, which both these are, the second one's laughable after what you said, especially laughable. First one is simulation. In simulation, basically, you start on one side of the map. The super carrier starts on the other side of the map, and then you basically start trying to seize the islands. And that one, it's an interesting way to play because it's slower. But I mean, a lot slower, but to get to the action. But that's a full-on simulation. Then there's a second option called arcade. Don't believe it. That's like Boat said. That camp's long gone. In this version, you both like start in the middle of these islands, and stuff's already happened. Like people already claimed the island, so you're right instantly in the thick of it.
Yeah, there's nothing arcadey about the arcade game. All it does is put you about halfway through the game.
Right.
So
right.
it's done a lot of the early island conquering work for you.
Yeah. Now, I watched our old Sinclair show on this, and after I'd played it for a while, and I can tell you when we looked at this the first time, I just really struggled to figure out what was going on, and so And part of the reason was I had trouble with the interface on the ZX. And part of the reason was it's just really complicated, right?
Yeah.
This has a beefy manual with a complete, like, opening story thing, and just, I mean, all the minutia, and we'll cover some of the minutia, but all the minutia in the game is plenty to fill up a big manual.
Yeah, and just to give you some background on the actual story of the game, is that this comes down to mineral rights.
Yeah.
There's a famous quote that says something like the meek shall inherit the earth except for its mineral rights, which I think is probably prophetic, given the state of the world right now. But there is a very rare mineral found in this island chain, and that's why the control of these islands is so important. But there's also an active volcanic reef that runs along these islands too, which threatens threatens their destruction. And so what you have is the evil carrier called Omega, which is controlled by this sinister organization called the Stanza. And so in the opening segment of the manual, you get this mission briefing from a guy named Fleet Admiral Whitaker, maybe named after David Whitaker, that your job is to pilot the not so mega carrier and defeat the mega carrier.
You know, you mentioned about Whitaker. I know for a fact there's an island in here named Edgeley, so I'm sure that's named after Claire. Yeah. I'm sure
there's a million islands in this game, so I'm sure they all have clever backstories.
So, what now? Here are the differences from the first time I played this. On the Sinclair, they've omitted some of the interfaces. There's a little less of everything. But I will say I enjoyed having more real estate, more higher resolution here, and stuff was a little bit easier for me to understand. So the premise of this game is you're going to go out and try to capture these islands.
Well, there's two ways. There's two ways to win.
Right.
You can either capture all of the islands, or you can just defeat the enemy carrier. So at any point in the game, you can abandon your island capturing mission and just go and try and take out the enemy carrier. However, without the resources that you need, you're not going to be able to succeed unless you apply the game-breaking bug to this game, which there is a way to win immediately. But if you want to play for real...
Really?
Yeah, if you want to play for real, you have to... This is a resource gathering game. When you take over these islands... there are basically three types of islands that you can turn a captured island into. You can turn it into a resource gathering island, a factory island, or a defensive island. Your resource islands give you raw materials that you need. Your factory islands produce your weapons and your equipment, and those are shipped to stockpile islands and then to your carrier. So you're constantly having to develop an economy in this game to resupply your carrier with the things that it needs to accomplish its mission.
Which are plentiful. There's a ton of stuff it needs. Yeah. And some of we'll get into the actual taking of the island in a minute, but I want to build on what Boat said, because this stuff, by the way, I did not have any idea about the first time we played it. And one of the things I didn't know until I learned and I want to thank the many people that offered up some tutorial videos for this, because I mean, God, they're so much better than just read a manual. But you have to, not only can you just go out, you have to be careful as to which island you take, because you've got to keep them within your supply lines, which is a whole crazy thing. I mean, it's really there's a lot of strategy going on, and it's intermingled with some, like, a little bit of twitchiness. It's an interesting game. It's an interesting pairing. So your carrier, aside from the fact that it has its own defenses and weapons that are available, including lasers and protection drones and all sorts of stuff, it's also got fighters called Mantis, and you've also got this amphibious vehicle that you can use. And so the way and there are multiple ways to play this, but what I would do is get my carrier close to an island, and then I would make a decision. How am I going to go at this island? Am I going to take my amphibious vehicle there, or I'm going to take I almost usually took the aircraft. So just to tell you about the detail of this, and this is we'll talk about whether this is a good thing. You have to, especially after you've used them, when you get your fighters on your ship, you have to put gear on them, missiles, weapons, some way to build, so whatever you're going to use, you have to put those on the fighter and on both your craft. Then you have to make sure that the thing is fueled up. And then you have to raise it to your deck, and then you have to have it take off your deck. Then you're responsible for flying this thing to wherever you're going to go and destroying whatever you're going to do or dropping off whatever you need, and then coming back. But while you're doing this stuff, at any time you can go back to your carrier or other. You could have multiple things going on in the game. Too much for me to wrap my head around, Boat, in fact. But I mean, it's amazing that a game like this can have so much going on, isn't it?
It is. Well, I mean, this is sort of the ultimate combat simulation, war combat simulation that I think I've seen on the Amiga. Because if you're looking for something that really puts you in command, it means that you're not flying a single F-16 fighter deep into enemy territory. What you're doing is you're doing that while you're waging war through the sea, while you're blowing things up with your aircraft carrier, while you're sending out scouts, to infiltrate an enemy island and put a virus in their command center. I mean, this is a game that lets you really feel what it's like to be in control of every facet of sort of this aerial control war game.
Yeah, and what's neat about it is, I mean, you can have fun with this game by ignoring the rest of the game. If you just want to take ships, and I did this occasionally. If you just want to go and fight some stuff on an island or drive to an island where there's stuff to fight, you can. You can just screw around. I mean, you won't win the game, but you could. It's very open ended. You've got a lot of options in terms of what you can arm the. You've got options in terms of depending on what you've got on your ship, of what you can arm your various fighters with. And so the general approved strategy on this game is to go to an island that you want to claim and take out hop into one of your vehicles and take out the command structure on that island. And then once you've done that, you can go up and you can basically put this thing on the island that will build your own command structure. And once you've done that, then you can sort of do what Boat was talking about in terms of what are you going to do with the island? Like what are you going to do with it? What are you going to get resources? What are you going to do with the thing? And it's sort of, and on the flip side, you've got the other ship that will occasionally want to claim islands, and so you're sometimes you'll come in contact. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with combat on your carrier and with your fighters. There's a lot going on, and keep in mind that this is Elite gets a lot of jack. Elite 2, okay, which is a great game, but this is a one-disc game as well, and this game is unbelievable. I mean, the amount. I think in a lot of ways this is sort of like a super duper Elite.
It's Elite is impressive in a different way than this game is. I mean, this game is also impressive because it's doing so much on one disc. But I mean, this is a game that's impressive for different. I wouldn't call this more or less impressive than Elite because they're two completely different games. The only thing that this game and Elite have in common is that you fly a spaceship.
Well, what I mean by that is Elite was a game that packed a ton of stuff on a disc, single disc.
Yeah, absolutely.
This packs a ludicrous amount of stuff on a single disc. And the amount of, and we haven't got into the real minutiae of this game, but the amount of stuff, the amount of weird, crazy gameplay elements you've got here are quite astounding. I mean, Boat, when you get resources for everything on your ship is going to require you to keep it up to spec with getting in resources, and there's a whole load of stuff. The ship has capability to repair the fighters a little bit if they're not too bad off, but you have to have the items that you need to take care of that. And when you're trying to do all these things at once and it gets hot and heavy, I can tell you when it got hot and heavy with me, I got slaughtered because the part of this game that was difficult for me was the actual twitchy fighting part of the game where you're actually flying around and blowing stuff up. It's deadly. You're like, you'll get killed without even seeing what shot you,
Yeah.
And did you fare? How did you fare in that area of the game?
Well, this is this game is difficult in every regard. There's no easy part of this game, except I will say that they do have built in, much like Elite, they do have automatic landing and takeoff procedures built in.
I wish I'd known that on the ZX, because I can't tell you how many times I crashed.
Yeah, if you're close enough to land on your carrier or on a runway in this game, you can push the auto land button. It'll do it. That saves this game from being a total wash for me, because I would have never been able to. Because this game it's in again, like Elite, it's a mouse driven, and like Starglider, it's mouse driven controls. So you don't have a joystick. There's no sort of control in that way. It's all done. You can
use the stick if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it.
I never did. Yeah,
I used it sometimes to do the battles, because they'll both be active, but it did okay, but you don't want it for anything else but the battles. Yeah.
And so, but to me, the most frustrating thing about it wasn't the fact that I kept getting shot down. It was that I never knew why or how to prevent it from happening. So, like, when you're flying your Manta over a enemy island, you may see, as you're approaching the island, something emerge from an enemy building, a plane of some kind. But because of the way, it's a first-person perspective, you can't see the plane behind you. You don't really see. If there is radar, I was never able to utilize it correctly enough to avoid being shut down. I know that there is a heads-up radar display, but I found that to be very frustrating. And what I've read from people is they say, well, it's because you're approaching the island in the wrong way. The right way to approach the island is to not park your carrier right off the island. You've got to make it further away and then fly your Manta from farther away to approach it in a way that doesn't alert the enemy. This is a lot to ask for old John Boat of Carshaw.
And there's a downside to that too, because you can lose contact after. So I always brought the boat because the thing is, you can use the boat sometimes if you're particularly skilled. You can use the laser on the boat to shoot down a fighter.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they won't launch another one.
Right.
And so and I saw some people that, like, most people I watch play this started off with the Manta, and then once they blew up the command station, they'd bring out the amphibious vehicle. But I did see a couple people that would just drive the amphibious vehicle up there and just blow up the thing with lasers.
Yeah.
But the problem is lasers, it takes a while, and you've got to be quick. And one thing that everyone says is when you go after an island, you've got to make a beeline to that command center and take it out quicker. You're almost certainly going to get killed. And I saw plenty of people way better at this than I am just get killed occasionally just because they just couldn't do it in time.
Right.
So
and so
this game gives you no forgiveness. On
top of that, if you really want to play this game well, if you want to play this game to beat the game, you have to master all of the sub tasks that you have to do. I'm just going to read to you from the manual.
This is the minutia we were talking about right here.
This section is called Supply Priorities. Hold on to your hats. Clicking on the Supply Priorities icon puts you in the Set Supply Priorities screen. This section is used to set the rate at which the resource network manufactures replacement weaponry and equipment. Click on the large upward and downward facing arrows to cycle through the available resource types, okay? Then it goes on to say you have to set each additional resource type at high, medium, or low, but you're not done, because guess what? To the right of the priority box is the quantity box. This shows the maximum quantity that is to be constructed for each piece of equipment. To change this value, enter a number between 0 and 999. So it's not just like high, medium, or low for the fuel,
You can change how quickly, like what parts of the ship you want repaired first. You have to toggle each and every one of them to prioritize them.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the weapons and stuff that you can outfit your stuff with. There's all sorts of like little things. Stuff including the map and your supply lines and how to link stuff. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so this game, this is the type of game that I understand why this game has a cult following, why people are very passionate about it. Because if you give your life to this game, I imagine it could be very, very rewarding because it is so deep. But it's also at the same time, you look for footage and reviews of this on YouTube. There's not a lot out there because you really have to give your life to this game to play it to its completion. Now, that said, there is fun to be had, even if you don't engage with most of what the minutia is. If you treat this game as a fun combat simulator where, you just set out and you try and capture some islands, you try and, in fact, because there are different ways to, take over islands. There's sort of the more peaceful way to do it with a computer virus and all that. You can have some fun. You're never going to beat the game. And even if you do, I can't imagine being able to beat this game in anything less than, 8, 9, 10 hours, just because of the amount of travel time that you have to do with the carrier between the islands. I started the strategic game, the normal game, the simulation game, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to set a course for the closest island to me that's not the island right next to me, and I'm going to see how long it takes me to get there. So the closest island to where you start, besides the island you're parked at, takes you 20 minutes of in-game play to reach.
Yeah.
This is 20 minutes in which you have nothing else to do. There's no enemies near you because the other guy is way off in his corner of the map doing the same thing. And so you just spend hours and hours of time traveling between these islands, and early on in the game, because you haven't really made any strategic decisions yet, you can't manage your supply lines. You can't re-outfit your ship and do different things. All you're doing is watching yourself truck towards the island in a sea of blue or looking at it from above on the radar screen.
And not with the full knowledge that when you get to where you're going, you could be instantly killed. I will say, I listened to quite a few people talk about this game, and it was one overarching theme that I heard from I don't think anyone I listened to said otherwise. They would say, this game, I've been told, would take you several days to complete, and they almost all said to a man jack that they'd never managed to do it. And these were people that knew a lot about the game. Mm-hmm. So that did make me feel better about my own gameplay. I spent the week... early on, I thought I was pretty intimidated, but I remembered the ZX. And I will say the buttons I don't know, maybe it's just from experience of doing this for a while, but the lack of English on some of the buttons, so I figured it out a lot easier. I don't know if it was just I could see them better than I could on the ZX, but I could tell, okay, this will take off, this will land, this push your thing on the surface, this big A is it turns off autopilot. This is when you click on your ships, because it's all icon driven, and when you first look at the screen, it is very intimidating, because there's icons on every conceivable part of the screen except for the view screen. And unlike a lot of games we play, there wasn't the game's logo or the name of the guy that made it plastered in this empty space. It's packed, and there are menus upon menus that you're going to have to siphon through to get everything done. Each ship's got a menu. It's crazy the amount of information that you have access to.
I'm going to put this game over in a big way.
Yeah.
Because even though this game is an icon-driven game, I think that the way that it's laid out and the art on the icons is extremely effective.
I agree.
I could figure out what everything did right at first glance. And this is also not a game that you have to go through several layers of menus to get to what you want. A way that they put the four types of craft on the side, which is you've got your carrier, you've got your autonomous drones, you've got your walrus, and you've got your manta. They put those on the side. So no matter what you want to control, you click on one of those. So you click on the manta. Then on the bottom in the context menu, you've got all four of your mantas lined up. So you pick whichever one you want. You click on that one and boom. You're either you're either under the carrier ready to outfit your manta, or you're flying in the air. And so technically you can have multiple craft out doing different things and click between them with a click of a button. Incredibly impressive technical achievement.
Yes, and you could even, what's neat is you could even you could have mantas out and stuff, and you could click back to the carrier, and you could see the mantas coming in, and or the mantas, you could see your ship.
Yeah,
I mean, you can and you can see the enemy. I mean, it's very impressive. It's it's multitasking.
I think one of the things that you really have to do if you're going to be successful at winning the game is they have ways where you can set waypoints for all of your craft. So if you can do like a multi-stage assault where you're using multiple mantas and multiple walruses, and you're coming on from different sides, and it does give you, this is again what we talk about all the time when we play a video game. We want that power fantasy. We want to feel like we're in command, and we've developed a plan, and we're going to put it into action. This game gives you that, and it does it in a way that's pretty easy to understand, even though it is very complicated what's going on under the hood.
I compared this to Elite in terms of the amount of stuff they stuck on a disc, but a better comparison to me was when I picked up, and because I played this game a lot back in the day, which was Armageddon, which is a similar type of game involving tanks. And I will say this right here tells you, and this is not a knock on Armageddon, but this tells you the design. This is a genius design, is what I'm saying. Like this right here, because Armageddon, you can have multiple stuff on the screen or whatever, but not this smoothly. I mean, they did an excellent job making this approachable once you understand the basics, which, like Boat said, it makes it a lot easier, and it's surprising what you could get away with. Now, there are downsides. Boat mentioned one is the time. There's no way to move time for it. God knows I looked. Another thing that could be confusing is once you've got a plane in the air and you're hitting your autopilot, occasionally you'll have to re-click on the little controller to pick up control of that thing. Sometimes stuff will happen in the game. It'll give you a message or something. It sort of like automatically takes away the control of the ship while it's doing that, and you have to go back. And that confused me for a while because I couldn't figure out why I kept losing control. And that's why that was happening. So, and then of course, like I said, the actual the reflex actions of the game where you're actually going out there and doing the fighting and stuff. Some people that are into these sorts of games don't like that. They don't want to do that. And so it's just like when they put arcadey stuff in a point and click game. A lot of people don't like to mix them up, So this is a game you've got to be comfortable with taking over the duties of actually going in there and doing the dirty work, not just doing all the maintenance and all the resource management. Yeah. But once you get past that, I agree. I think this is is this a game I'd hop in and play on a Friday night for kicks? No. But it is a game that you have to applaud the genius programming stuff behind it, because it really is something that is unique. I mean, really, the amount of stuff going on is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, if I were going to make a change to this game, I would truly make the arcade mode, and I would truly make the simulation mode.
Yeah, because the parts are there.
I would have the simulation mode be where you have no direct control over your aircraft. You're setting the waypoints, you're putting the plan into action, and then you're letting things go. Okay. Then in the arcade mode, you're in the seat of the walrus, you're in the seat of the manta, and you're dive bombing and doing all this stuff, but you don't have to worry about keeping your fuel supply open. You don't have to worry about establishing what kind of goods you want to put in your factory and stuff like that. I think separating those two modes out would make both sides happy.
Or you could even maybe have the computer simulate the non-arcadey parts of your carrier, and all you have to do is do the stuff that that might be kind of fun.
Yeah, this game or basically just allowing a greater degree of putting things on autopilot.
Yeah. This game also screams for multiplayer, frankly. And it's funny. I looked. This game has sequels. I know the next one that came out was tank based. It wasn't even really based on the carrier, but I know there are other sequels. So I don't know if at some point they implemented multiplayer, but you would think that, yeah, it says here Carrier Command 2 has a multiplayer component on Steam. So
yeah, and Carrier Command
fun.
2 is a modern game.
Right.
It is a modern 3D game that looks like it was made with the Unreal Engine or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it got kind of mixed reviews because I think that most people that were checking it out had no idea about the original game. And so they were like, this is sort of lame compared to what's out there. And then the people that did play Carrier Command back in the day, they were so enamored with the original that any kind of change that Carrier Command 2 might have made to make it more user-friendly was not met with high praise.
That would be a tough game to take on.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You're going to be serving two masters, and it's going to be very difficult to serve the masters that love the original game or are good at it. And you're right. If you're not going to make them happy, then you're stuck trying to make people happy that are into like big budget money games.
Exactly.
And then you're screwed. So, Bo, we looked at it just for fun. We had a look to see how this compared with a couple other systems, and Bo really turned me on to this. I had a look at it after he mentioned it was the DOS version of this.
And I do have to give a shout out to Mavunky on our Discord server. He was right out of the gate talking about how the DOS version was better, so I had to check it out.
So, the DOS version, I didn't play it, but I did look at it. Of course, as you would expect, the version on either one of these platforms is going to run better, considering what kind of processing power you have. I did watch a guy play the DOS version with a 486, and it ran great. But what are some of the advantages the DOS version has over the Amiga version?
There's one big advantage that trumps all the other smaller advantages, and that is a way to speed up time.
Yeah.
So if you're playing it doesn't matter. Whatever version of the game you're playing, you can speed up time at any time to make things happen faster. So you're not just waiting around a lot. But there's other things too. The frame rate is a lot better. The water looks a lot better. The AI is supposedly improved and more difficult, which I don't need a more difficult AI. But,
oh, God, no.
But for those of you that do, there's also improved. It's just a better game all the way around. And I don't know if if it was just designed for a faster processor in mind, and the Amiga version was just sort of a secondary consideration or what. But if you can only play one version, the MS-DOS version is going to be the one you want to play. I
will say, of course, when you're playing the DOS version, so if we flash back to 1989, this was the era of the 486, and you were getting 46s all the way up to, I think it was like 66 megahertz, something like that. So you would expect there to be an improvement in the actual speed of the game, just due to the sheer nature of the raw power that a DOS machine would allow you to have, that it would have over the Amiga. I mean, they do look similar, but yeah, I think you nailed it. The time compression thing, and like I told Bo before the show, just to make sure I wasn't an idiot, I was like, man, I could not figure out how to move the time forward. Well, you can't. They did not. That wasn't an aspect of the game on the Amiga and the Atari ST, and so putting that in the DOS version, I think that's a good idea. We also looked at an even wackier version, which was the C64 version of this. Now, they really did something different here, Boat. They actually made this. I guess they didn't figure that the C64 could hack it in terms of its ability to render the 3D, which is funny because we played this on the ZX.
Well, but it's the 128K ZX, yeah. So it's a much more powerful machine.
What they did here was they made this game fairly faithfully, but they made it a 2D game. So,
which is really what they should have done with the ZX Spectrum version.
Well, yeah, but I will say it is. I mean, hey, if you're on the ZX, you got some bragging rights, right? But what you do on this, when you take out the plane, it's an overhead, almost like it looks like you're playing a shooter.
It's a lot like Raid on Bungling Bay. If you're listening on the radio,
that's the name.
Just picture that.
And then when you take out the amphibious vehicle, you're actually going through a more detailed area, so in some ways, they've improved the graphical detail in some ways, and in some ways, of course, it's much worse because it's not in 3D. But I mean, when I came across this, I was quite interested. I was like, that's you wouldn't have expected this to be back ported to the 8-bits, but someone was very ambitious, and these were pretty late releases too on those systems.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you got to give them credit.
It's surprising to me because you're essentially writing a whole new game when you do this, and I haven't played it either, but just looking at the footage, it looks like it would be fun, and so props to them for giving the C64 some love.
Yeah, because again, I'm pretty sure that this was developed and released on the ST as its main source, and of course, going from the ST to the Amiga, not a huge deal. But you're right, coming back to C64, it's a complete do-over. When you do that, so I found that interesting. So one might wonder, Boat, how this was received back in the day. I do have some reviews here. The people at Lemon hold this game in high regard, giving it an 8.15 out of 10. The people over at Hall of Light give this an 83%. So a B, I guess is the best way to put it. The magazines of the day, the contemporary, it's funny. So this I found interesting. A lot of these magazines came back in and reviewed this as a budget title. I don't think this sort of game got as much attention the first time around as it should have. And I think when it came back out as a budget title, the reputation they were like, okay, we're going to talk about this because now here it comes.
Right.
So I looked at the contemporary reviews were pretty good. Commodore User gave this 9 out of 10. The One gave this 4 out of 5. These are all released during when this was first released. Your Amiga gave this an 82. And then when you flash forward, AUI gave this an 8 out of 10. So as you move into the budget area, it's just one of the rare games that gets high praise as a budget title. Amiga Action reviewed this a couple years after it was out in 92 and gave this a 90%. Amiga Format did the exact same thing with the exact same score, 90%. Amiga Joker reviewed it 91, gave it an 82, and Amiga Power gave it an 89. So these are all scores that would have came in after it'd been out for a while, but still, for a game that was that old, really, if you look at the games on the Amiga in even 92, these later reviews, there was not a game that I've ever played that was quite like this. So this game probably it's quite evergreen in a lot of ways.
I mean, this is for me, this is a solid B title on the Amiga, and the only thing that holds it back for being an A is the fact that you just need too much time to play it completely. I
think this was an incredibly ambitious title. So this is one of those ones every once in a while we come across one of these that was so ambitious, but did they pull it off? Is the question, and that separates a B from an A. You're right. I mean, this is a very, very high B, only held back by a few, like the time compression and just the sheer size of the game. I think if you'd have pared it down into something more manageable, but I mean, the diehards would absolutely, you'd give this an A+. There's no doubt about that. So did we get any action on the Discord on this one, Bo? Did everybody take a chance?
We did. We got one review this week from Cameron Armstrong, a.k.a. Night Fox. He says, this game was a childhood gem of mine, although since it was a pirated copy, I didn't own the manual, so I only had to guess what I was doing. You can imagine I didn't get very far. This game is a complex and difficult beast. It throws you into a world with a single enemy which is more powerful than you are. There's no easy mode either. Throughout the entire game, you experience constant stress as the enemy carrier captures islands at twice the rate you do. However, the graphics are nice, and if you want, you can ignore the game objective entirely and just enjoy a nice sightseeing cruise amongst the islands and enjoy blasting away at hostile islands in your mantas and walruses. Or is the plural walrus?
Uh-oh.
Yep, I'm back.
Carry on, Boat. Wall
For an
ride.
Amiga title, the graphics are gorgeous. The flat shaded polygons combined with the nice sound effects really trigger the imagination to visualize what the islands could look like in real life. If this game was properly made with modern features, I believe this could be a fantastic title. Do not even bother looking at Carrier Command 2 on Steam, since it's nothing like Carrier Command and is nothing but a bundle of disappointment. Burial of Carrier Command 2 from Night Fox. Overall, kind of fun for casual fighting and capturing islands, but not so fun if your aim is to actually beat the game. So do what I do and just pretend the enemy carrier does not exist. Just have a fun vacation exploring the islands and shoot anything that shoots back. 7.94 out of 10.
Very good, very good. Just a couple little tidbits before we take this one to the house. This game, the PC, the Amiga, and the ZX versions of this, much like Starglider 2, this came with a tape, an extra tape of music, Boat.
Cool.
And it was done by Dave Lowe. And I guess the little intro we play was sort of like a digitized version of what you would get on the tape. So if you've got an original version of this, you may also have the tape included with it, which I like that. I like that. Maybe that's a thing with these guys. They'll throw in the music tape. Mm-hmm. I kind of dig it. This game was named by Amiga Power number 15 in the all-time top 100 Amiga games. High praise.
Wow.
As well. So there's a little something for you. If you're interested in picking this one up, this surprised me, Boat. I'll be honest with you. You could get this thing for a song. I saw people in America, by the way, selling these, but all over. I saw prices at $10, $13, $37. This is complete in box. I don't know if they had the tape, but I saw some of these sell for $5 and $10. So I don't know if they made a ton of these. I don't know if it's not in. You would think this would be a game where you'd really want the manual and whatnot.
Yeah.
But these are available. So if you're looking to pick one of these up, what do you think about this prices, Boater?
I am shocked. I'm shocked that it's that cheap. I know that, Rainbird and Telecom Soft games in general don't command the highest prices when you compare them to, LucasArts games or Psygnosis games. So, yeah. I mean, maybe that just has something to do with it.
I will say, if you're going to pick up, if you want something that will occupy the cold winter's months, with a big beefy manual and plenty of gameplay, I think this is the game for you.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
Amiga News.
All right, Aaron. It's time for some Amiga news. This week, we're going to kick it off with a brand new issue of Amiga Addict, Aaron. This is the big virtual reality issue, the tagline, the story of how Amiga did VR first. The first ever virtual reality system in the history of the world was the Commodore Amiga. So,
really? But in the history of the world?
Listen, man, if Amiga Addict says it, I believe it.
They didn't say that, though, did they?
Yeah.
That sounds like a Boat exaggeration if I've ever heard one.
In addition to that hot story, there's also a story about one of our favorite PD games of all time, Alien Fish Finger. Remember how much fun that was?
It's part of the cover disc. Disc. I love it. I was so happy to see that.
There's also a look at the new Dune 2 remaster project. That's got to be exciting for a lot of people.
We actually didn't hate Dune 2. That was one we kind of got into, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did Dune 2 by myself. You were not present.
Yeah, but I did play it, unfortunately. So I got screwed. I got
you
sick
did get
that
screwed.
week. Yeah.
Worms Armageddon is back on modern machines, but the Amiga features too. So listen, there's only one place to go. There's a lot of Amiga magazines out there these days. There's a lot of wannabe trades, a lot of wannabe rags out there.
Here we
Throw
go.
all those in the garbage, just like I did that A600 in the ad. get yourself a subscription to Amiga Addict. It's the best.
Listen, please support all Amiga magazines, but absolutely support this
you
one.
bury everybody else. And you raise your
we
friends
love
up.
everybody else. We love the other magazines, but this one looks great. Look, Virtual Virginity. They're working on a little blue right on the cover.
They do work a little blue over at the AA. Aaron, speaking of working a little blue, there's nothing bluer than the Doors and Elevator Action. Elevator Action gets a final build, Aaron, JOTD, converting, transcoding one of your favorite arcade games of all time, Elevator Action. Are you excited about this one, Aaron?
Dude, I think we previously discussed we've got I love it. I love this game. I triple love it, as you know. And added bonus, I love JOTD. I'm going to say it's got Valentine. You know what I mean? And some candy and a heart-shaped box. Because he just brings a smile to my face. I can feel JOTD, the stream, coming sometime in early the year. Should have enough material the way he's transcoding stuff to do another whole stream about him. And this is going to lead the pack because it's Elevator Action too. Now, I have not got to play this Amiga port of this game, but something tells me if his track record is maintained, that this will be double great. And if you've never played, sometimes I forget that I'm old and everyone else isn't. And so some people, sometimes someone will say something to me that I'm shocked. And some people haven't played Elevator Action 2. Maybe they haven't even heard of it, right? Mm-hmm. Listen to your old pal, your good buddy, Uncle A, and your buddy, the Boat. When we put this over, it's a great arcade game. And once you play this game and you get your fill, you can graduate to the also awesome sequel, Elevator Action Returns, which is an awesome game as well. So both those are great. But yeah, this looks great. Thanks to JOTD for, it's almost like Scott can read my mind, man. So yeah, I think that's great.
And our next upcoming game, Aaron, this is a new work-in-progress remake. This is a game called Duel, Aaron, and this is a sci-fi spin on one of the early influential black and white arcade games, the old Wild West shooter, Aaron. I can't think of what the game is actually called. Sheriff or something like that? Remember it was a Nintendo game? What am I thinking of here?
This sort of game, so it's what I think it is. This game had many iterations. In fact, Boot Hill was one of the first games I ever played.
That's right, Boot Hill. That's it.
And it was this type. Now, I'm telling you right now, having looked at this, it looks like there's a UFO has crashed, and there's a hick with a shotgun, and he's having a gun duel with an alien, and he's shooting, and this guy's shooting dynamite as well. This looks great. It's a simple premise, executed cunningly. I like the fact that there are chickens running loose. It looks great. And this, by the way, this could happen at any point. It's almost like someone went to they went to Braxton County and they were like, listen, we're going to recreate the crash. This is exactly the way it went down from what the tales I've heard.
It's ripped from today's headlines.
This looks great, Boat. Again, who is doing this one here? This one looks awesome.
Is Electric Black Sheep is behind this. They are also working on that Tower of Evil remake and a bunch of other games. So yeah, they're hot and heavy in the Amiga scene right now. Make sure you go over to their itch.io page and pull down this demo and give it a like on there and share it because we want to support these independent Amiga developers.
It looks like this. It says here they're games from the ZX machine. Z80 machines, so that's dandy. And also, I like what Happy said. The only thing missing from this game is the probe.
Oh.
I agree. You never know. That could be screen 2. That looks great, Boat.
And finally, Aaron, our final news story of the week. Aaron, did you know that Commodore is back?
I've heard that.
This is a video from world famous YouTuber Retro Recipes, currently sitting high atop the retro charts with 244,000 subscribers on YouTube. Aaron, you had a chance to check out his latest offering, the new Commodore 64. Tell us about it.
Listen, it's no secret that I'm not a big fan of this guy in this retro mansion with his hot model wife and all of his goodies. But he does bring some interesting stuff to the table. And so when I saw him holding up this case with a stupid look on his face, I was like, I'm going to do what I know I'm going to regret. I'm going to click on this and see what this goofball is talking about. What he's talking about is it's a PC case in the Commodore tradition with like a cool guy keyboard on it. What you can do there is stick the old x86 style PC in this thing, and then what you got there is that's how Commodore's back. That's how it works. So you may have saw the price flash by just now. This case right here costs $18 billion. It's like a $500 or $600 case. You know.
Well, I mean, listen, that is not that much more than Stephen Jones' checkmate case.
Well, but I mean, that actually was for classic computers. When he says, like, this is for an Amiga, this is for a PC. Added bonus that made me double mad. He says, listen, he goes, they've given us one of these cases to give away, and we are going to give 10% of the funds to charity. And
what do you think? You know, I just saw him raise his arm to demonstrate the goosebumps on his arm. What do you think about when he does that?
The thing is, and I'm not the first person to mention this, but if he doesn't weep openly, the product's no good. That's my gauge. But I'm irritated. So he says, I'm going to give 10% of the funds to charity. Then I'm going to use the rest to fund my various projects. I mean, come on, 10%, you chintzy bum. Can't you give all of it to charity, or at least half? 10%'s nothing to charity. So I thought that was an added kick in the pants. So, and he's got this thing running, this Commodore OS. Remember we talked about the Commodore OS a while back? This is our buddy the Chud's like wet dream. This thing, every time you touch a key, an alarm goes off. Every time you move the mouse, 400 graphics shoot out for every part of the computer. I found this the case quite attractive, and the OS quite amusing, if anything. But I found the price double painful, and the presentation added bonus. But if you buy this thing from this guy, he can go add an extra layer of wax to his fake Knight Rider car, and he'll do that while weeping. And he'll probably film that too. So just an FYI. I hate to throw stones, but this guy really bugs me. I wasn't going to say anything until the charity thing. That irritated me. But yeah, if you're interested in this case, he does have links to the actual place where you can get the case. I will say the price is insane, but the case looks nice. So if you're looking for it, it's funny because you can get you know what kind of case you can get for an actual PC for $500?
I don't know if you can spend $500 on a case. I just bought a case that I'm going to return to Amazon tomorrow, and I paid $100 for it, and it's awesome. So
I think you order stuff from Amazon just on the sole basis of that you'll be able to return it.
Sometimes.
That's just my guess. Hey, before we exit the news, just a cheap, shameless plug. We will be getting together for the third of 4 Conversations with the Dark Side tonight. My good friend, the Flaxter, a.k.a. Rob Flack O'Hare, and myself will be getting together tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, as you listen to this live. And everyone else can listen to it on YouTube. And tonight's topic will be potions and poisons. Boat should be a good time. Oh, and one more quick announcement, and I'll get more into this on the next episode, but I know myself and the Brent are running behind on ARG Presents, and we are going to run behind on the upcoming R. Sinclair. I'll get into more of it on when I record the next ARG, which should hopefully be this weekend. But things are coming, so just don't lose faith. We'll be back in the saddle, toot sweet. So that's all I got, Bode.
All right, man. What we got coming up next week on Amigos?
God only knows, Bode.
Kit
Kat bar.
Atticus. I think it's Atticus is what it's
That's
called.
when they rake the cup over the bars in the jail, right? Atticus.
So, Aaron, listen. Say that you're out there and you're listening to Amigos, and you're like, man, I have some money burning a hole in my pocket.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If you give us that money on Patreon, we give 0% of that to charity. It all goes in our pockets. So
until our huge charity event, then
give us all of your money, and we promise that we will spend all of it on wax for our prospective cars.
When's your fake Knight Rider car coming in? All I've got's the ringtone.
Patreon.com/Amigos Podcast. We'll see you guys next week, and until then, adios.
Amigos is made possible by contributions from listeners like you. Patreon supporters help choose the games we play, receive exclusive magnets, and get access to the Amigos Retro Gaming Discord server. Visit patreon.com/Amigos Podcast if you'd like to support the show and join our community.